Yeah, so I have started the recording. It is, yeah. So, as I was saying that tutorial 1's topic is mainly the questions that is based on week 1 lectures, right? So, which is the scalar and vector these quantities. That is a primary thing to start with in the Newtonian mechanics course. So I'm going to discuss the problems. First mention the problems, explain it to you, and then solve it. And you can follow it with me. You can solve with me, and you can have your own individual answer and match with me that whether it matches or not. In case if you find some dissimilarities, or maybe even I can make mistakes on some point, you can point it out. Or in any case, if you have any doubt, you can also point it. Okay, so let us begin. This is the first question. So it is saying that suppose you are pushing a box, this is a box here, with a force F and the box have a displacement D. Okay, so this is a force is a vector quantity, as you know that it has a value and as well as a direction. So you are putting force on that box, that is the F force, and as a result the box is having a displacement D vector, and displacement is also a vector, so it has a particular direction which is this arrow. Okay. Um, so they have not put several individual arrows on top of the quantities, but you have to assume that these are vector quantities, right? And whenever you write it by yourself, please put this mark always, like whenever you are writing a vector. Otherwise people can get confused whenever they are checking your copies or something. So scalars will not have this sign on top, but vectors will have. Now the force vector expression is given to you in the question, that F vector is 2x plus 3y plus z. Now also I would like to mention that they have not put markers on this unit vectors, which is the hat kind of a sign that you have to put whenever you want to mention that it is a unit vector. Means that it gives you the idea or information of the direction that you want to put, right? Just like you have three axes, x axis, then you have y axis, and then you have z axis, right? Like now like this you can draw your three-dimensional coordinate system, right? So this x cap basically means that this is the unit vector along x, y cap means the unit vector along y, and z cap along z. So I'm just mentioning it, these are trivial things, but I am mentioning it for the sake of it just once at the beginning, and I will not repeat it after that. So as I was saying that these are all unit vectors. These are not some, like this is not a some variable x. That is, I just want to mention so that you do not ever confuse with these notations. These are unit vectors, and F is the overall vector of force. Okay, and the displacement vector is also similarly x cap plus a y cap plus z cap, right? And both are having the dimension of Newton and meter, so SI units. And the work done W by your force is 30 joule. Okay, so then what is the value of A? Now, first see what is given to you and what you need to derive from it, right? So, you have the information of force and you have the information of displacement vector. Now, you have the value of the work done, W. So, you have to look for the formula or equation or some idea that connects them all. So, like you know that work done W is actually a product of force times displacement. But because work done is a scalar quantity, W is a scalar quantity, so it is a dot product of two of the vectors. You already know from the lectures already, I suppose, that two vectors, when you take the dot product of it, you get a scalar quantity. Scalar means it does not have any direction, it just has a value, right? So work done has this formula F dot D. So you can express your work done W as F vector dot D vector. You see that these are vectors, so I have put the arrow markers, but W is a scalar, that is why there is no arrow mark on top of it. And this is a dot product. This is not a simple multiplication, this is a vector dot product. And so the value of work done is given, so the left hand side is known, that is 30 joule, and you have information about F. Now this only variable that is unknown to you in the question is A. So whenever you take the dot product, you have all the quantities known, only one variable A. So from solving the this thing, you can get the value of A. So I'll directly solve it, maybe not here, maybe I'll do in the bottom of it, the bottom page in a blank space. So let us take our work done to W F dot D, right? This is a vector dot product. Now, what is the rule of vector dot product? You know the basic formula probably, that whenever you are writing a dot product, that means you are taking modulus of each of the vectors in the dot product, and then you are taking a cos alpha, where alpha is, as you saw from the question, that alpha is the angle between these two vectors. So if you draw an angle between F and D, the angle is alpha. So this is the expression of F dot D. This is the dot product expression, F modulus, D modulus, and cos alpha, right? This is the generic formula for dot products. But whenever you have the vectors expressed already in the directional components of unit vectors, like you have what was that? So let us check, 2x cap plus 3y cap plus z cap. So if you have F equal to 2x cap plus 3y cap plus z cap. So F is a vector that has components along 3 of the unit vector directions, right? And similarly, you have your displacement also expressed as a vector, which is the value of which has the expression of x cap plus ay cap plus z cap, x cap ay cap plus z cap. So whenever such kind of expression is given to you, the work becomes our work becomes much simpler, because dot product has this thing that you can directly correlate each of the similar unit vectors with each other, right? Because how? That if you take now that F dot D, the dot product, what you need to do is that you simply choose each of the unit vector components which are similar. Like you take the dot product of x cap and x cap, which will be 1. So x cap dot x cap equal to 1. Similarly, y cap dot y cap equal to 1. And also z cap dot z cap equal to 1. Each of the unit vectors when taken dot product with itself will be equal to 1. But in contrast, when you have x cap dot y cap, two dissimilar unit vectors, that will give you a 0 value. Similarly, this is also same as y cap dot x cap, because they are commutative. Then y cap dot z cap or z cap dot y cap is also 0. And similarly, x cap dot z cap or z cap dot x cap is also 0. This is the advantage, that you do not need to consider the other multiplication at all. You just need to check your similar unit vectors and their components, and you can directly have a multiplication and easily calculate your dot product, right? Like here, I am only going to consider x cap dot x cap, y cap dot y cap, and z cap dot z cap. I am not going to consider any of the cross components, like x and y I will not take, y or x I will not take. Similarly, x, z, y, these are not needed because they are all 0, right? So we'll just take 2 into, this is nothing, so this is 1 basically. So 2 into 1 is 2, right? Similarly, the plus sign is there because there is a plus sign. And then you have 3 into a, because this component is unknown, this component is a coefficient. And then 1 into 1. Right, so this is basically 1. So what you got is that 3 plus 3a from the vector dot product of force and displacement. Now this is your scalar quantity of work. Now in the question is also given that the work done is 30 joule. So what you have is that 3 into 1 plus a equal to 30. So then your 1 plus a becomes 10 and simply your a becomes 9. So by this simple expression, you can find out. This was a pretty easy question. This was our first question, that is why. So this just to give you the idea of how to take your dot products very simply. And whenever you do such products, you always have to remind that these are vector dot products. So you cannot just apply simple multiplicative rules. That is why I give the focus to you, that why you need to understand that we are only taking these components and not taking any cross components. And because even if you are going to try to take the other components, those will give rise to 0 value, because these similar unit vectors product is 0 dot product. So whenever you take these to this, let's say I am going to use a different color. If you take this to this, So x dot y is already giving you 0. So even if you have 2 as a coefficient and a as a coefficient, that is going to give you all 0 value. So those have no meaning to be added. Right? So our answer to the first question is 9. Hence, I hope this does not arise any question or doubt. So we mark our answer, right? And I think somebody else is showing that. Let me check once. Yeah. So we are kind of in the. Acha. Yeah. I see that you have Navneeta. You have raised a hand. So can you like maybe I will not be able to see your raised hand every time I'm on the page of the
Okay, it's
class.
fine.
You
Uh,
can ask directly by unmuting yourself.
yeah, I got it. A is equal to 9. You did that. So
Yeah.
product f dash is equal. Sorry, what w is equal to f vector into d vector into cos alpha. You have put it actually.
Yeah.
So that the cos alpha will not be considered in the multiplication of it, or this is left as it is.
No, no, actually cos alpha term is there. That is a generic expression, but you can also solve and get the same answer if you calculate your alpha from here. So that is another like way of doing the same thing. So like say, I'll show you here. So let's say this was your d vector and this was your f vector. So if I look at the diagram properly, yeah. So let's say these are the two vectors and this angle is alpha. Now, how do you calculate your cos alpha, right? You can also get your, like you want to know that whether we can get the dot product and get this kind of answer by also calculating the cos alpha component, which I did not do because it was not necessary, as I could directly to take a dot product of the separate unit vectors along x, y and z. So that was easier, but
Okay.
it can also be done by if you calculate cos alpha. Like I'll tell you that if you look at the expression of f dot d, this is basically f modulus into d modulus. This is some simple multiplication because these are scalars. This is not dot product between f and d modulus, and then cos alpha, right? So what is your
Okay.
cos alpha then? Cos alpha you take to the other side. It is f dot d, which is your this side, divide by this quantity, right? So
Oh,
f and d,
so
right? So you can this way calculate your cos alpha. You just have to put the expression of f that was given in the question, put the expression of d that was also given in the question, take the dot product, and then you have to divide by the modulus of each of f and d. Like in the case of f, you have to take the, how do you take a vector modulus? So you have to take a square root and then whole squared like addition of each of the coefficients, right? Like for f modulus, you
okay.
have root over 2 squared plus 3
Okay.
squared plus 1 squared. Similarly, for d modulus, you can take that is 1 squared plus a squared plus 1 squared. So whatever value you'll get, you will have a f modulus and you will have a d modulus. Now
Okay.
this will be your cos alpha expression, and similar dot product will be taken care of on the denominator. Now this way you can also get the same thing back, because ultimately you will be getting this answer, right? 3 plus 3a will be your dot product value. But since I told you that this kind of a thing is much simpler to do, since you have been already given the 3-dimensional coordinates. So by this simple rule, that because all of these are coming from the same thing, you see that x dot x cap y, it is 1, because x and x, they are both in the same direction, and because they are unit vectors, so their modulus is 1. So your x dot x is basically modulus of x cap and modulus of x cap into the angle between them. Now since they are two same unit vectors, so the angle between them will be 0 degree, and they are unit vectors, so their magnitude is 1. So 1 into 1 into cos 0 degree is giving you 1. So this is basically the fundamental equation, and all of the things we are deriving from it are basically a like
Okay.
results from that. Do you understand what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
I got it. I think we are since you are multiplying the f vector and d vector only,
Yeah,
and that equation a is there. Our since the question asked is a,
yeah.
so we are not considering the alpha actually, right? So work done W will be equal to, that means it will be uh, sorry, no, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm going different direction actually. That's fine. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So your question was right that we are trying to solve for A, so we will go directly approach the simplest route possible, right? But what I
So,
was trying to tell you that this f dot d cos alpha is the fundamental thing of all. Like you cannot produce any dot product if you do not follow this rule. So
yeah,
ultimately, whatever we are doing here is a like result of this fundamental thing only, but we are trying the simplest route to get to the answer faster because when you are first introduced with the dot product idea, then you are introduced with this kind of a thing. Then as you go on with the things, then you will already try to find out the simplest approach possible. So that is how. So this is the fundamental equation, and whatever we are doing is a derivation from there.
okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So then we move on to question number 2. So you see that this is also a force and displacement kind of a problem, that you are pushing a box with a force. Again, this is a vector and these are unit vectors, and the vector expression of the force is given, and the displacement of the box d vector is also given. Now here they have mentioned that x, y and z are unit vectors in x, y, z direction respectively, like I had drawn earlier. Yeah. Just one second. Yeah. Okay, so we are kind of in the middle of the assignment and we are right now discussing question number 2. So, yeah. Now, f and d vectors are given to you. Now, the question being asked is number 1, that are the force you applied and the displacement of the box is in the same direction. So, they are asking you whether the direction of the force, which is a vector quantity force, and the direction of the displacement, which is again a vector quantity, are those two vectors in the same direction or not? This is the question number 1. And question number 2 is that is the component of your applied force along D is bigger, equal or smaller than the magnitude of the force? So we'll deal with the problems one by one. Let us take the question number 1 first. So as I told you that vector comprises of two things. One is the value and the other is the direction. These are the two main components to define a vector. Now, how do you get the direction of a vector where the expression of the vector given to you? So that is one important question. And once you know how to find the direction mathematically, then you can get the answer to question number 1, that whether force and displacement are of the same direction or not. So let us do that first. So question number 2. The idea is how to derive your direction of any vector if the vector expression is given to you. So what is the mathematical formula? Now the idea is that let's say you have I am taking a vector, any or arbitrary vector, a vector. So it has a magnitude, this a mod, I am expressing the magnitude of a, and it has a direction which is small a cap. So basically I am writing small a cap as to denote the direction vector of a vector. So these are the two components of a vector. One is the value or magnitude and the other is the directional information, right? So always remember the directional information of any vector will be like included in its unit vector in its unit vector quantity. So like for a vector, its unit vector is its direction, which is expressed by small a cap, for like I have expressed here. So how do you get the then unit vector's value? So this a cap is basically nothing but your a vector divided by modulus of a. This is the general idea, that if you want to have the directional information of any vector which is expressed by its unit vector form, you have to take the main vector expression, which is a vector, and you have to normalize or divide it by the modulus of the a vector. This is a simple idea. Now let us apply this idea to the question that is given to us. We have in the question a force vector, which is your f vector. Now if you have to similar way derive or express the force vector direction, what you are going to do is that its direction of f vector, let's say this is f cap. So f cap is, I am expressing the direction of f vector, which is a unit vector representation, and its value will be f vector divided by modulus of f vector. Similarly, this generic formula I am following. Okay. Now you see what is the expression of f given in your question. It was minus 3x cap, sorry, minus 2y cap plus 6z cap divided by, you have to get the modulus of f. So how do you do that? You take a square root and you take each individual components along each direction of x, y and z, each component's whole square. So like here the coefficient is minus 3, so minus 3 whole square, and you take a sum of it. So minus 2 whole square plus this is 6 whole square, and the whole thing under square root. So this is giving you basically minus 3x cap minus 2y cap plus 6z cap. And if you just look at this expression, what is this modulus? This is 9 plus 4 plus 36, which is basically root over of 49. This is 7. So what you have in the denominator is 7. So this is nothing but the directional information, or basically the direction of your force vector. Okay. This is, let's say, your f cap, the direction of force vector. Now you have the information of direction of force vector. Similarly, you have to derive the directional information or directional unit vector for d vector. And you do the same thing. You take d vector by modulus of d vector. And you know from the expression given in the question that this is minus 3x cap plus 4y cap, and it has no z cap component. So z cap is basically 0 times z cap, no z cap component, divided by, again its modulus is minus 3 whole squared plus 4 whole squared plus 0 squared is 0. So you have here 1 by 5 minus 3x cap plus 4 y. See, this is your direction of the displacement vector. Now if you look at these two, this circle thing and this circle thing, you can clearly see these two are not equal, right? These two are not same, obviously, because apart from the values directly, what the first thing you will notice is that there is a z cap component here in f vector's direction, which is not present in the d vector's direction. Here is no z cap component present at all. Okay, so that is the first thing that should strike you, that even before deriving this whole unit vector thing, once you get familiar with the idea of vectors and scalars, this thing you get accustomed to, the first thing you'll notice is that in many cases this question was simpler, so they have a direct starking difference to you, that one has this z cap component present and another has z cap component 0. So that is the first thing from which you can decide that these two vectors are not having the same directions. The most obvious thing. But in some problems you will be also be given like expressions of the two vectors where both will have all of the x and y and z components, and then maybe you'll have to look at the expression of the unit vector and directly find out whether they are matching or not. In this case, I have done both ways. I have also pointed it out how to like quickly decide if there are signs that you can quickly decide whether the two vectors are having same direction or not. And the conventional way of also deriving the unit vectors is telling you that both are not having the same direction. So our question number 1 is answered, that not same direction. Alright. Now we look at the part number 2 of the same question. That is asking us that is the component of your applied force F along D is bigger, equal or smaller than the magnitude of the force F. So what they are trying to tell you about by telling that component of F along D. So our part number 2 is that you have to derive the component of the force vector F along displacement direction. Okay. As you know already that F and D, those two vectors are not in the same direction. So let's say if your D vector is like this, F vector is like this, just like in the first question, you can imagine. So both are not having the same directions. So then if two vectors are not in the same direction, so you know that vectors can be divided into components. So let's say this is our extended F vector, right? and or let's say for even simple approach so that it does not confuse you, let us take that this is our, for a general expression, let us, this is a general vector A vector, this is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. Now A vector is not in the direction of either x or y, so A can be divided into two components in this case, like one component will be along x and another component will be along y. We can tell the components ax and ay, right? So how you can express this? A vector is ax x cap plus ay y cap. So ax means this is the component of A along x and ay is the component of A along y. This is very simple looking because these are already unit vectors. These are coordinate information, right? X cap and y cap. But in this case, you have been asked that what is the directional component of F vector along the direction of D vector. So D is not your unit vector like x cap and y cap, like not coordinate unit vectors. So how do you get the directional component of F along D? Let's say if this is your F and this is your D, so how do you break the F along as a component along D? So let us call this component as FD because this is F along the direction of D, right? Now, as I gave you this very simple expression, this will help you to see how we are doing this. Like for FD, the simple expression, the formula I'm going to write is that this is simply F vector dot D cap. Always remember this formula that whenever you have to calculate the component of any vector along a certain direction, what you do is that you take the main vector of which the component has to be derived. In this case, the force vector is the main vector, right? Because the question asks us about the component of force vector. And then you take its dot product with the unit vector that is related to the direction that is being asked to you. So in this case, they are asking you about the direction of displacement, right? D. So the unit vector that you are going to take on the second term is your D cap, obviously. So this is a simple idea that you have a vector and you are being asked to take the component of the vector along a certain another vector's direction. So what you will do is that you will take the main vector and you take the dot product of that vector with the unit vector for the direction in which you are being asked with. Because you know that unit vectors are to denote the direction, right? So whatever direction this D vector has, all the information of its direction is included in its unit vector D cap. So that is why you take the component of F along D cap. So that is why you take a dot product of F vector along D cap, or you take basically F vector dot D cap. So now, similar thing as I was telling you that how this comes, the relation comes because of this expression. Whenever you are taking a component or breaking a component of A along x and y, you are basically taking ax x cap plus ay y cap. So how do you get x cap ax then? If you, let's say, for imagine you have taken a dot product of a cap with a vector with x cap. So what is that value? So a vector, you know that ax x cap plus ay y cap. Now if you take a dot product with x cap, what do you get? X cap dot x cap is 1. So this is ax times 1, right? But y cap dot x cap is 0, as I already told you. So you are only getting ax. So very simply, from this simple expression, you have found that what expression we are writing here is nothing but this, that if you take a vector with a dot product with x cap, you are getting a component of A along x cap, which is denoted by ax. Similarly, if you take a dot product of F vector with D cap, you will get a component of F along D vector's direction, which is denoted by me as FD, right? So now once we establish the formula or why this formula is valid, we will just directly put the expressions that is given of F vector and D vector and I will get to the answer, okay? So now F vector expression is given to you already, that it is minus 3 x cap minus 2 y cap plus 6 z cap and d cap is basically the unit vector of d, so d cap is nothing but your d vector by mod d, right? So that we have already calculated here. We directly use the expression that it is 1 by 5 minus 3x cap plus 4y cap. So the dot product with 1 by 5 minus 3x cap plus 4y cap. So because 1 by 5 is a constant, you take it outside. Now you deal with the simple thing of dot product, that you take individual unit vector components like I did for the problem number 1. So you see how simple this is. You just look at x cap, you bother about nothing else. So minus 3 into minus 3 is minus and minus, making it plus 9. Then you take y with y only. So this is minus 2 into plus 4 is minus 8. Then you have z cap, and there is no z cap here, so basically 0. So 6 times 0 is 0. So here you have 1 by 5, which is basically your 0.2. The unit will be Newton because it's the force. So the component of the force along the direction of the displacement is 0.2 Newton. Now the question was that whether this value is smaller, greater or equal to the actual magnitude of the total force. So that you can also calculate what is the magnitude of the force actually. So F vector is basically minus 3 squared plus minus 2 squared plus 6 squared. This is 9 plus 4 plus 36. This is 7 Newton. So you see that your total force magnitude was 7 Newton and the directional component of the force along the direction of displacement is just 0.2 Newton. So obviously 7 Newton is greater than 0.2 Newton, right? So thus we have that the direction of the component of the force along the direction of displacement is actually smaller than the actual magnitude of the force. Okay, so I hope I am clear with this problem. So our answer will be smaller, that the component of the force along the displacement d is smaller than magnitude of the force, right? So part number 2 is also solved, that we mark our answer out of these 4. First of all, that they are not in the same direction. So they are in the different direction. So here you can see the answer is also written. So we'll match what we have derived is correct or not. So the answer will be no, they are not, they are in different directions. And this one is the answer. And the component of the applied force in the direction of displacement is smaller than the magnitude of the applied force, because this component is 0.2 Newton and this is smaller than the magnitude, which is 7 Newton. So this answer is also derived properly. Now if you don't have any questions on this particular problem, then I move on to question number 3. Okay. So question number 3 is telling us some of the vector statements basically, and you have to identify which of the statements out of these 1, 2, 3, 4 number of statements are mathematically correct or mathematically meaningless. So you have to identify which are mathematically meaningless. So the only information that you have been given is that A and B are all vectors. So these are actually vectors. Now we'll check each of these things and we'll decide. Okay, so like say for number 1 point is that A dot A plus B dot B equal to 0. First of all, how do you say that whether it is mathematically meaningless or meaningful? So the idea about this is that you have to have similar kind of quantities on both sides of your equal sign, right? Because in any equation you cannot have scalar quantity on one side and you have vector quantity on other side, because these are different quantities. You cannot equate them anyway, because scalar do not have dimension information but vectors have. So either you have to have scalar equal to scalar or you have to have vector equal to vector. That is the primary thing that you need to look at when you are going to mathematically identify whether this is meaningful or meaningless. Say we take the first option that A dot A plus B dot B equal to 0. Now the first thing you notice that this is the RHS or right hand side. RHS is 0 and 0 is a scalar quantity because this 0 is just a value. There is no direction added to 0. The 0 is a scalar, right? So once you notice that your right hand side has a scalar, then to have this equation as mathematically meaningful or have a meaning to this equal to sign, you need to satisfy that the left hand side is also a scalar quantity. So this is left hand side LHS. How to decide? So A dot A plus B dot B, is it a scalar? What do you think? If I ask you, what do you think that A dot A plus B dot B, is it a scalar?
It's a scalar. Yes.
Yeah, right. So that is absolutely correct, because whenever you take a dot product of two vectors, that will going to give you a scalar quantity, which only has a value and does not have any direction. So by that, now this is a scalar individually and this is a scalar individually. So when you add two scalars, you also get a scalar, because you add two values, you will get value, no direction, right? So then you have satisfied your first condition, that two scalars on left hand side is giving you a scalar on LHS and right hand side is also a scalar. So mathematically it is meaningful. Now one question may come to your mind that I think is valid. I don't know if you have thought about it, but I thought about it when I looked at it, that do you think that this A dot A plus B dot B equal to 0 will be valid for any vector A and B, or there is some specific condition that needs to be satisfied, that even if this is mathematically meaningful, that both are scalars on left hand side and right hand side, will this make sense for any value of A and B, or is there some specific condition under which this will be satisfied? So this is like not included in the question itself, but this is just for the in the context I like to mention that I found it worthwhile to mention. So if anybody of you know the answer or got a hint about it, you can unmute and let me know, or I can tell you that what I think about it. Okay. So just to give you a hint, look at the expression on the left hand side, A dot A plus B dot B. Do you think that this kind of a dot product on the right hand side will always give rise to 0? Like is value wise the thing correct? Because you see that A dot A is just mod A whole square, right? Because you are taking dot product of the similar vector, so what you will going to get is the modulus whole squared. Similarly, B dot B is going to give you B modulus whole squared. Now if you think about it, that modulus of A whole square has to be a positive quantity, right? And similarly, modulus of B whole square has to be a positive quantity, because they are whole square terms. They cannot be negatives, right? So then if you look at it, your left hand side is basically A whole mod square plus B whole mod square, where A and B are both vectors and these are their magnitude whole mod square. This is 0. So then what you are getting is that A whole mod square is minus B whole mod square. Now is this possible for any value of A and B? Like that, does it make sense? Because even if you have A whole mod square as a positive quantity, because this is the modulus squared, but on the right hand side, to satisfy this equal to sign, you have to have a negative and on the right hand side, but it cannot be negative, right? Because both are positive. So how can two positive quantities can be related to by a negative sign? That is the most obvious thing that gives us the answer. Maybe if nobody prompts, then I will give you the answer. This is very simple. I think that this is only possible if any of the value of A and B is 0. Only that. Other than that, this is not possible. So as you can see directly, that two positive quantities cannot be related by a negative thing unless both of them are 0. So if only when A modulus is 0 and B modulus is 0, only when you can equate this as 0 equal to 0. Otherwise, there is no possible way to have this mathematically correct. So this is something that is an extra addition that I wanted to have. This is value wise. I was talking about whether this is mathematically making any sense or not. But even before going to that, if you are just looking at it mathematically from a vector point of view, then obviously this is a correct statement, because you can have a 0 or null vector. You can have a vector which magnitude is 0. But so in that case, you have, this is a correct identity, that you have on both sides that there is a scalar quantity. So it makes sense. So This is the correct statement. And then if you look at similar ideas will be applicable for the other options as well. Like for option number 2, you have this quantity A dot B is a scalar because dot product, and this A, this is 2 times A, so this is a vector. Now right hand side again is a scalar. So you have a scalar plus a vector equal to scalar. This does not make sense because scalar plus vector is not same as scalar. Or on the other, like in the other way you can say, because this is 0, you can take it to the other side and you have minus 2a vector on the right hand side. Then you see that left hand side you have a scalar and then right hand side you will have a vector. So that is not mathematically meaningful. So this is not true. Then third option is A dot B plus 2 equal to 2a vector. So obviously this is a vector on the right hand side. On the left hand side you have 2 scalars because 2 is only a value constant and A dot B is a dot product. So this is also incorrect because scalar equal to vector cannot be possible. So this is also false. And the last option is that B dot B by A dot A equal to 1. So this can be correct because you see that first of all mathematically it is correct that B dot B is a scalar quantity. When you divide it by another scalar quantity A dot A, this can give you a scalar quantity which is 1. So left hand side and right hand side both are scalars. So in this case only mathematically meaningless answers are 2 and 3. So 2 and 3 will be our answer, which is also the accepted answer. So this is how you decide whether this is mathematically making any sense, by looking at both the sides of the equal to sign, and you decide whether both are scalars or both are vectors. Otherwise they cannot be equated. Okay, so this was also pretty conceptual question. Then we move on to some actual mathematical calculations. That is our question number 4. So suppose you are applying a force on a door to open it, and then your point of application of the force is at a position r vector. So r is also a vector, it has this expression with respect to the fixed origin O. So whenever you are defining a vector, you know that you have to have a coordinate system because these are coordinate unit vectors, right? X cap, y cap and z cap. So like I had drawn here, so I forgot to draw here that there is an origin here. This is our origin O, which has this 0 0 0 notation where x, y and z both are, all 3 are 0. Then as you move in a particular direction, you will have a value involved. To that particular direction you will have a component, but this is the origin where the 3 coordinates meet. So like, so whenever you define a vector, any vector, r vector let's say, so define that vector with respect to this origin O. You start with this is your reference point, and then this vector can have components along x, components along y, components along z as well. That depends, because here you maybe probably cannot visualize because this is a 2D picture I am drawing on this paper. But if you look at it for a 3D, because this is a 3D model, right? X cap and y cap and z cap. So if you have these 3 directions and if you have a vector going from the origin, so it can have 3 directional components, x, y and z. All 3 directions are involved. So that is how. So origin, with respect to origin, you always define your any vector, in this case your position vector. Now these are known that these are dimensional direction vectors. Now let us define torque for the force. Torque is another vector. As you probably know that torque is simply r vector cross f vector. So this is a cross product. So here they have introduced in this problem another product for vector product. So till now you are only discussing about the dot products. Then comes cross product, which is r cross f. So the mathematical expression of torque is involving r cross f. This is not dot product, this is different. So this is a cross product between r vector and f vector. Now suppose that you want to produce the maximum torque tau. However, the magnitude of the force you can apply is constant. Then the force is always applied at the same point P. Then you can maximize tau by adjusting the direction of f until tau is maximum. Okay, so let us break down what they are trying to tell us. That you have basically your, this is say your dimensional coordinate system, x cap, y cap and z cap, and you have a position vector r vector, which is expressed by this 2x cap minus 6y cap plus 10z cap. This is your origin O. Now tau is r cross f. So your however the magnitude of the force is always applied at the same point P. So let us say that your force is being applied. Force is being applied at a point P, and the expression is tau vector is r cross f. So let's say I can draw my force like this only. So let's say this is our point P. Okay, point P is defined by its position vector r vector with respect to the origin, and point P is also a special point because this is the application point for the force F vector. So you know that whenever you have such kind of a torque idea, you already know that there is a force being applied with reference to a certain position, and your torque is basically the position vector and force vector's cross product. So with this expression known, then you also have to know the fundamental idea of cross product. Like the dot product I defined with cos theta or cos alpha, here the idea will be r vector f vector modulus simple multiplication, and then sine, it's a theta I'm going to say. So theta is the angle between r and f. So this is how it is different from your dot product, that in the dot product you had your what do I say, that was cos alpha, or the cos angle was taken between the two components, but here you have the sine theta component. Okay, another very important thing is that in the dot product, when you would take a dot product of two vectors, you will always get a scalar quantity. Like work done is a dot product of f and b. This is a scalar because two vectors taken in a dot product will give you a scalar back. But here you see that I have taken a vector sign on top of tau, like, right? Because this is very important. In the vector cross product, in the right hand side you will not get a scalar, but you will get a vector quantity. This is the main difference. Apart from this formulatic difference, this is the main difference, that a dot product gives you a scalar back, but if you take cross product between two vectors, that will give you a vector back. Okay, so always remember this because this will be useful later on also, that vector dot product gives you scalar quantity back, but vector cross product gives you another vector. And the special thing about this vector will be that your tau will be perpendicular to each of the vectors of r and f. Okay, so like say you have if I draw it like this, that if your r is like this, okay, and if your f is at the point of application here, so then your tau vector will be like this. So I'm trying to say is that it will be perpendicular to each of r and f. So like in the question I have also like drawn it in a certain way that you might think that f and r are perpendicular to each other, but that is not necessary always. They can also not be perpendicular to each other. They can be, maybe I'll change the picture. So in actually 2D it is difficult to draw and visualize, but I'll try to. So let's say if this is your r vector and this is your f vector, so your another vector, that is the cross product of each of r and f, will be in a certain way. So you have to imagine it in 3D. I may not be able to draw it properly, but it is a certain vector tau which is perpendicular to both r and f, right? So angle of tau with each of r and f will be like r cross f will be a perpendicular direction to both of them. So anyway, that is not required for this calculation. So once we have placed the idea of cross product, what they mean, we will move on to the solution, that they want to maximize the torque in the question. So they want to maximize the value of tau. Now there are ways. Hello, yeah. So is there any doubt? 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So, what are the ways that you can maximize your torque? As you look at the expression for the value of this torque, this is only the value because the direction is, because it's the vector and its direction is perpendicular to R and F both. So we do not look at the direction here. We are only interested about the value because we want to maximize the value of the torque. So there are ways that either you can maximize your force, that is the value of modulus of F, or you can increase the distance R vector, or by, let's say, shifting your point of application of force. How you can increase R? You have to shift your point, right, from the origin. So if you do that, you can increase R. That way you can also maximize tau. But in the question, they are prohibiting both of the things. They are saying that both of the things are not allowed. That what they are saying is that the magnitude of the force you apply is constant. So clearly, this option is not allowed. That you cannot increase your force to increase your tau. Similarly, they have mentioned another thing, that the force is always applied at the same point P. Means that this P point, you cannot just by yourself shift this P point so that you can increase your mod R. So that is also not allowed. So both of these things are not allowed, and the only thing you are left with is very like simple to see, that your only way to increase tau is increasing the sine theta part. So if you increase sine theta, your tau will also get increased, even if your R and F modulus are not getting changed. And for increasing sine theta, basically you have to adjust your theta. You know that sine theta is maximized when theta is 90 degree. Then sine theta is 1, that is the maximum value of sine theta. And when theta is 0 degree, then sine theta is minimum, which is the value 0. Okay, so clearly, if your theta is 90 degree, then only you will have a maximum value of sine theta, or 1, and then only you can have a maximum value of the torque, that is tau, right? So let us choose this blank page since it does not contain enough space there, and solve this. So since tau vector is R cross F, this is a vector cross product, so tau is automatically a vector, but we know the modulus of tau vector from the definition of cross product. This is simply the modulus multiplication of each of the modulus of R and F, and then a sine theta, where theta is the angle between R and F. So if your R is like this, and if your F is like this, and this is the point of application of the force P, and this angle is theta. So since these two are constants, you cannot change this, they are fixed values. You can tune your theta to get the maximum tau. So tau modulus value is maximum given that R and F are constant and unchanged only when sine theta is maximum, and sine theta is maximum at theta equal to 90 degree. Sine theta maximum value is 1. That means your first condition to get maximum torque is that this angle has to be 90 degree. Okay. How to do that? Basically, this will be perpendicular to each other. So if this is your R vector, this will be your F vector, so that their angle becomes 90 degree. This condition is necessary to get maximum torque value, so the modulus, given the condition that you cannot change your position and cannot change your force. So basically, your tau maximum value is nothing but R modulus to F modulus into sine theta is 1 for maximum value, so 1. And now you can directly calculate each of the modulus of F and R. So if you look at the expressions given in the question for each of the vectors, you will see that the expression of R modulus is 4 plus 36 plus 100. Basically, I am taking modulus squared thing that you already know. And with a simple multiplication for F mod is 100 plus Fy squared plus 25, right? So this part is giving you root over 140, and this part is giving you root over of 125 plus Fy squared. Now your tau max maximum value of tau given in the question is 140. 140, okay? So 140 is your left hand side that is given in the question, and on the right hand side you have one unknown variable which is fy. So the first thing you do is that to get rid of the square root signs, you take whole square on both the sides of the equation. So you take 140 squared is equal to 140 into 125 plus fy squared. So this thing and this thing cancels out. So you have 125 plus fy squared is equal to 140. Thus you have fy squared is equal to 50 and fy is equal to root over of 50, which is basically your value will be 3.87. Newton is the unit. So thus you can, under this condition that you have to have the torque maximum, you can get what is the value of fy. Remember, the thing we had to tune in this case is the angle theta, that whenever you have constant that you cannot change your r or f, the only way we can maximize this thing is the tunability of the direction of the force. So by changing theta we could maximize and get to the simple answer that how fy is 3.87 Newton. So we'll pick our correct answer. This is 3.87. Okay, so correct answer is also this. So 4 is also done. Then I will move on to question number 5. Okay, so question number 5 is about three vectors u, v and w, and then there are four statements given again in terms of these three vectors, and you have to choose that which of the statements are true. Okay, so again these are called vector identities. So I will mention some of the vector identities because it will come handy whenever you solve further problems, any kind of problems, assignments on these vectors. So first, for this question I will derive and show you whether I am saying a statement is true, whether that statement is true or not. Then I will directly mention the vector identity rule basically. So there are some fixed identity rules that are true for vectors. Like when you are very much familiar and accustomed with the topic, you do not need to even derive and check whether some identity is correct or not, because you can directly identify them from their form. So there are some, the first thing that is, first option that is given to you basically is that kind of an identity, that from here we can directly tell that this first option is definitely true. Why I am able to say that, being able to say that is basically because this is a thing called a vector triple product. So you see that there are three vectors u, v and w, and there is two cross products between them. So this kind of a form is called vector triple products because three vectors are taken in a cross product form. And whenever you have a vector triple product in a particular cyclic order of the vectors, you have the right hand side as 0. What I mean to say by this, so I'll derive the whole thing, do not worry. I'll derive whether I am saying that this is true, is actually mathematically true or not, but just to have a feeling of the things and to have a quick approach to solve things, I'll show you that if you at any point of time, if you have three vectors a, b and c, okay, three vectors, and you have their triple product forms, how to know that this expression will be correct or not? So in our case, this a, b, c are basically their u, v and w, okay, any arbitrary vector. So the cyclic order will be to go in a particular manner, right, in a particular rotational direction. So like from a to b, b to c and c to a, this is your cyclic order. So we are going in a clockwise manner. So following this particular cyclic order, if any kind of a sum of the triple products is given, then you can definitely know that that will be 0 on the right hand side. Like say here the first triple product will be a cross, then b cross c under bracket. Then the second term can be, the b can be first, and then maintaining the cyclic order, after b you have to come to c. Like for after a you have to come to b and then c. So if you start with b, you cannot go back to a. You have to maintain the cyclic order and you have to come to c. So this will be b cross c cross a. And similarly, if you stop at c and start with c, then by following the cyclic order, you have to next go to a. So the thing will be c cross a cross b. And if you have such cyclic order and if you have a sum of all these three terms, the right hand side definitely has to be 0. So this is a very well known vector identity of vector triple products, and it is bound to be true. So, but now I'm going to derive it mathematically as well, that why I am saying that this will be true, or this, why this is called an identity, that this is obviously obvious to be true. That let's say we solve here for this particular thing. So first of all, our vector, this is called a vector triple product identity. Vector triple product has this rule that if you have triple product like this, that A cross B cross C, where A, B, C are arbitrary vectors, the rule is called back cap rule also, because this triple product expressed is like B multiplied A dot C. This is a dot product. This is a simple multiplication. Not multiplication, I'll say, because this B is a vector, but you see that A dot C is a dot product, so this is going to give you a scalar. So this is a coefficient added to this B vector. There is no dot product, so do not ever confuse to put a dot product here. There is nothing there. And then cab is basically, so it is called a back cab rule. Okay, so this is something to remind it by, that this is how this is, so that you do not puzzle around that which term to put first. So for A cross B cross C, a generic expression of three vector triple product, you have to follow the expression by the back cap rule. Back cap, why? Because this is B coming first, then A dot C, minus C coming first, then A dot B. And always remember the dot product is only in the bracketed term. This part is no dot product. So this is blank. Okay, this is just a scalar with the associated with the vector. So this is your back cap rule, that A cross B cross C is giving you B A dot C minus C A dot B. This is your back. This is your cap. This is how you remember it. Now, once you have known that, now you will see that why that identity said that question option number 1 is true is actually correct. Identity 1 was telling you that U cross V cross W plus V cross W cross U plus W cross U cross V. This is your left hand side. Now I am going to solve the whole form of the left hand side. So you take each of the individual triple products one by one and you apply this back cap rule to them. Like say for U cross V cross W. So here your U is your A vector, V is your B vector, and W is your C vector. So mentally picture it like a cross B cross C triple product. So what you will get is that B A dot C, right? So here your B is V vector. Then A dot C is U dot W minus your C is now W, and you get your A dot B is basically U dot V. So the first term is done. Then the second term comes. So this I'm going to write in green to separate it. So here your A cross B is A is V, B is W, and C is U. Just mentally picture it so that you can relate it with the general back cap rule. Okay, so U cross V cross W cross U will be, B is your W here. Okay, so W vector first. Maybe choose. Yeah, and then W with A dot back cap was A dot C. So W A dot C is here, V dot U minus C A dot B, right? So C is U vector, A dot B is V dot W. This is done. And the third part is this part I am going to write in blue. this is here your A, B, C are different. You define it like this thing. So your A is basically W and B is U. So back cap is U, then W dot V minus C is V vector, cap V vector, A dot C, A dot B, W dot U. So now once you have all of the three triple product terms derived properly, now you match whether you cancel out anything. So you see this term VU dot W is same as VW dot U. Why? Because both have vectors V vector first, and this bracketed term is the same because U dot W and W dot U are equal, because dot products can commute with each other. That is the beauty, that A dot B is equal to B dot A. So this is another vector identity as well. These are all called vector identities because these are some absolute true things in for vectors that is followed always. So this is a vector identity, that's A dot B is equal to B dot A. So dot products are commutative. By following this rule, U dot W will be W dot U. So you see that these terms, those two terms are equal and they have opposite signs. So they will be cancelled out with each other. By following the exact same thing, you will see that this term and this term are also same. So these are also cancelling out. And this term and this term are also same, and hence cancelling out. And you see that very easily you get your right hand side to be 0. Just like the mention in the option, right? So that is how this becomes a vector identity, a very important one. Just like this is, like say this is like I denote one number A. This is a vector identity rule. Another vector identity rule is regarding the cross product. In this aspect, I like to mention that cross products do not commute with each other. Like A cross B is minus of B cross A. Okay. They have a directional option. So that is how, if you take a cross product, you cannot just commute them. If you commute them, if you change their order, then there will be additional minus sign coming to the equation. So this is another vector identity rule regarding cross product. And the third one, there are another other things as well, but because this question mentioned this triple product rule, this is another identity that whenever you have this kind of a cyclic order maintained triple products, their sum will be 0. And here, like I said, that A cross B cross C plus B cross C cross A plus C cross A cross B will be always equal to 0. Like you may say that instead of A, B and C, you see that here they have expressed in U, V and W, but U, V and W, you can also place it like this, that U to V, V to W and W to, like a cyclic order. They have exactly followed that U, V, W and then V, W, U, this term, and then W, U, V, this term. So they are maintaining that order, so their sum will be 0. But if you do not follow the cyclic order, then their sum will not be 0. That is exactly they have mentioned in option number 2. How you can say that if this identity is correct, then this one is wrong. Because why? Because you see that U, V and W and then minus V, W cross U. So there has to be a plus sign here, but they have put a minus sign. So once you put a minus sign, that alters the sign of the cross product also, because you know that W cross U, if you take a minus in front, so it becomes U cross W, right? The minus sign gets absorbed and it reverses the order of the cross product. So then the second term becomes plus V cross U cross W. And the third term also, because it absorbs the minus sign in the cross product, it becomes W cross V cross U. So the cyclic order actually breaks. What I am trying to tell is that if you express this one, and if you want to have a plus sign or a sum between all the terms, what you are left with is that first term is left as it is, so U cross V cross W. Then the second term, we absorb this minus sign within this cross product. So a cross product, by absorbing minus sign, will change the order, reshuffle the order basically. So it becomes V cross with a plus sign and minus comes in between this cross product and changes the order to U cross W. Similarly, the minus term on the third term gets absorbed in the cross product and it gets you V cross U. Now you see that U, V and W is maintaining a cyclic order. Okay, but after that you have to have V, W and U, but rather you have V, U and W. So this is not cyclic in order. Okay, then W, after that you have to have W, U, V in maintaining the cyclic order, but instead you have W, V, U. So this is also not cyclic. So by this identity rule, you see that the summation of them will not be 0. So this identity is incorrect. This is incorrect. And also mathematically you can like get each of the cross products, vector triple products expression like I derived for this one. So you can do it like a very small check for yourself that whether you understand the topic or not, that you can simply do follow what I have done here. You can express each of the terms like this and you will see that they are not cancelling out and the answer will not be 0. So I hope that will be easily done. So I am leaving you for you to do that. Then option number 3 and 4 are left and you have to choose which one of either both of them are true or one of them is true. So I'll directly solve the question number option number 4 because that is the correct option that as I have previously solved it myself, and I'll show you why that is true. And once that is true, that immediately tells you that the other one will be false because both have other signs. But I am showing you the derivation below here why I am saying that this one is true and the other one is false. So like say in option 4, which I am telling you that is true. What was the thing? Yeah, I think it was U minus V dot product U cross W cross U minus V. Let me check once again. Yes. Yeah. Now they are saying whether the right hand side is 0. So this is our left hand side. Now you see that you can like say have a bracket term here. This is a cross product between two different terms and this is a dot product between another vector. Now you know that there is another vector identity that you have to remember, that A dot B cross C, if there is ever such kind of a form that two vectors are in a cross product and then along with that you have another dot product with another vector, you can always write it like B dot C cross A, or you can also write it as C dot A cross B. Again, this has to follow a cyclic order, then only it will be true. Like A to B, B to C and C to A, this cyclic order is B has to be maintained. So like it was A dot B cross C, right? So the second expression in the cyclic order we can tell is that starting from B it will be going to C and then A. So B comes in the dot product first and then C cross A. Similarly, it will be equal to this. And similarly, another term which starts with C, where C comes in the dot product and then C to A to B. So C dot A cross B. So all three terms are equal. This is another vector identity rule. So that we are going to use here. So this is the vector identity rule that I am telling you. So this is obvious to be true. I am not deriving that how this is coming separately because that will take a lot of time. But if you like have any doubt, conceptual doubt that whether this is, why should you believe that this is the identity rule or why should we believe that this is true? So for the first time, I suggest whenever you are trying these identity things, each one of them you try by yourself by deriving it in the most simplest steps. Like break it down and go to the end and see, check for yourself that actually this term and this term are equal. And this is very simple to check. I'll tell you that you just have to start with a very trivial thing that you can divide A, B and C into components. Like you can have A as AX cap, A1 X cap plus A2 Y cap plus A3 Z cap. This is a generic expression for any vector. Like you can express it as a unit vector directional components of X and Y and Z. Similarly, you can have B vector as B1 X cap plus B2 Y cap and B3 Z cap. And for C as well, C1 X cap plus C2 Y cap and C3 Z cap. And what you need to do is that first simply take your B dot C, like say if you have, B cross C, like if you have first this expression, you want to check that whether this expression is actually equal to this expression. So first you take the bracketed term, you take the cross product and you know how to take these cross products probably that you need to arrange it like this. Then you have to take the determinant of each term, C1, C2, C3, and you have this kind of a thing that for x cap the component will be B2 C3 minus B3 C2. I think you are already familiar with from the lectures. So similarly y cap you have a term, similarly z cap you have a term, so you have this cross product. Then you know the expression for a vector, you take the dot product of this term simply by taking x cap dot x cap as 1 and all the other components as 0, only the similar components, x with x, y with y, z with z, and you will have an expression in terms of a, b, c, like a1, b1, c1, a2, b2, c2, a3, b3, c2. You will have an expression. Now for the check, you will take another expression with this term. You will take c cross a cross product now and take a dot product with b with these expressions, this generic expression, and at the end you will find another expression in terms of all these components a1, a2, b1, b2, c1, c3, etc. And we will finally have to check for yourself that these two are actually similar. So this is a simple check. I'll suggest that maybe since in the beginning of the course itself, to increase your understanding, you can try to solve the simple checks for yourself rather than just directly believing it as an identity rule. Okay. Anyway, for our derivation, we'll believe it for identity rule. In case some of you try this and you do not get the answer correct, you can later on let me know. I will show you the solution maybe. But anyway, it is not very difficult. So here we can directly use the identity rule, and then our life will be simpler, because you see that this u minus v vector is a vector. Let's say this is a vector. This is also present here. This is also a vector, and let's say this is our b vector. So what you have simply is that a vector dot b vector cross a vector. So here a and a are present in both the terms. Now if you simply look at this thing, you can get a expression from this identity rule that this is equal to b dot a cross a, because here c is equal to also a. So what you have is that you have a cross product of a with itself, which is going to be 0. This is another known fundamental thing about cross products, that this is just opposite to dot products, that whenever you take a dot product of a vector with itself, it is going to give you the non-zero value of the modulus of itself. Like if you take a dot product, so it will have a whole mod squared, the modulus squared. But if you have a cross a, it is going to give you 0, because then the same vector, the angle between them is 0. So you have a sine theta term in cross product and sine 0 degree is 0. On the other hand, you have a cos theta term in the dot product and cos 0 degree is 1. That is why they behave differently, and a cross a is already 0. The vector taken cross product with itself will give you 0, and this dot product with a 0 vector will also give you 0. So this part is already giving you the formula to be, the equation to be true and equal to 0, and we can say that statement number 4 is correct. We did not have to solve very long derivation. We just had to know the vector identity rule, and you could directly apply it here. That is the generic idea you need to follow. Once you are familiar with the topic, you have to know the vector identity rule. Obviously, the basic ones you have to remember, and there are some simple tricks to remember them. As I said, that you have to follow a cyclic order like this, and you can do not even need to memorize. You can directly, like from the idea of cyclic order, you can directly get the expression. And the other part, for the back cap rule, you have to remember it or memorize it by back cap rule. There is no other way. So this expression you have to remember. Otherwise, it is like not worthy of. For first, sometimes it is worthy of checking it in a every nitty-gritty detail, but other than that, it will take a lot of time to solve just a very trivial simple question. So these are the shortcuts you need to know about, and for that you need to know the identity rule. And since we have already seen that option number 1 and 4 are correct of these 4 options, option number 2 was already wrong, as I told you that they do not satisfy the triple product identity rule. And similarly for option number 3, you can check for yourself that is also incorrect, because the right hand side will not be 0, because that had an expression like u dot v dot u cross w cross u cross v. So if this is your LHS, can we check that whether the RHS will be 0 or not? So how should you do it? So the first thing is that you have to assign each of the terms with a vector, and you see that none of them are same vectors. Sorry, I think I made a mistake that here this was u minus v vector. This is not a cross. So each one of them are different vectors. So we identify our u plus v vector as our a vector. U cross w vector is also a vector because cross product of two vectors is a vector, sum of two vectors is a vector, and minus of two vectors is also a vector. So we identify each of them for simplifying purpose as another vector a. This vector we identify or denote as b, and this is identified as c. Now this is simply becoming a dot b cross c. You remember this formation just like I showed earlier, that a dot b cross c is b dot c cross a is equal to c dot a cross b. What did I write it? Yeah, this is a vector identity rule. Okay, similar form we have obtained where your a vector is your addition of two vectors, b vector is the cross of these two vectors, and c vector is u minus v vector. Now once you know the rule, you can directly have that this is equal to b dot c cross a from the vector identity. Now what happens is that this becomes separate. B expression is this. Then c and u put their expression. This is basically u minus v vector cross u plus v vector. Okay, and u cross w dot. Then you take each of the vectors independently. That the first term will be u cross e, right? This term. Then the second term will be u cross v. And the third term will be v cross u. So I am disintegrating it out in other like each of the components, and the last term will be minus v cross v. Now you see that u cross u will be going to 0 because cross product with its own vector will be 0. V cross v is also 0. Only remaining terms are u cross v and v cross u. Now this is also simple because u cross v is minus of v cross u, right? Because you know that whenever there is a sign change, the order also gets changed. So if you reshuffle the order of v and u, it is going to give you a minus sign also. So that is how I am able to write it like this. So once you have this, you can clearly express it in a more compact form, that this is u cross w from before. This is the dot product, and this is simply, this is because this is same, so this is going to give you 2 times u cross v, right? So what you are getting is that you are getting a value, I think u cross v minus, right, all right. I'm just checking whether there is a sign issue or not. U cross u and oh sorry, v dot c cross a, right? U minus v dot cross a. U dot b cross c is b dot c cross a, so u minus v comes cross a. Yeah, so I think it is right. If you find any sign problem, because there are so many terms, there can be some minus sign mistake I have made. So please be sure, and you can also solve with me so that if I make any mistake, you can identify. Anyway, so you can see that this is a term which has terms like u cross w, u cross v. Okay, and if you there's a dot product presented here, so like we can leave it here also, or you can, if you want, you can further solve it till the end. But from here only you can guess that this dot product will not give you 0, right? The answer you can like derive it further by putting more and more vector identity forms, but here it only itself it gets you the answer that this is non-zero, because each of the components, the dot products they are different vectors. So their dot product of two vectors is only 0 if they are perpendicular vectors to each other. Means there is a cos 90-degree thing. Or if the vector magnitude of each of any of them is 0. In this case, u, v and w, none of them magnitude is mentioned to be 0. So, and their angle will also not be 90 degrees. So this is no way as 0. But I can also like solve a bit more to have, so that we do not have any doubt further that their angle should not be 90 degree to make it 0 out of a dot product. Like say you can further simplify this expression like a dot b cross c again, where your a is redefined as u cross w. This is your a, and b is your u, and c v is your c. So once you have that, you again use your vector identity rule, and you have 2 times a dot b cross c. Let me check my notes because I made a mistake in here. Yeah, so we can directly use the, I think, what was that, a cross b cross c. Yeah. A dot b cross c, so you can directly use b dot c cross a. B is your u vector and c is your v vector. Okay, so just looking at what makes it simpler. So let's say we take b dot c cross a here. So then it makes v cross u cross w. So it does not get it any simpler. But if you take c dot a cross b, then you have to v dot u cross w cross u. Okay, this is same as 2 v dot u cross w. I have just changed the order. So as a result, whenever I have changed the order of the cross product, there is a minus sign coming. So minus 2 b vector, and then here you can finally apply your back cap rule. Here this is your a cross b cross c. So how back cap rule is taken, you remember that b, then a dot c, okay, minus c, then a dot b. So here you see that u dot u is basically u whole mod square. This u dot w is not 0, so none of the terms are 0. So you see that this is a non-zero form you are getting at the end. So this is just a derivation I did so that you can get the idea how to proceed with any kind of vector expression given to you by using simple identities that is known to you. Anyway, so our answer is already derived, that only the statement number 1 and 4 are correct, 2 and 3 are incorrect. This also matches the answer given. Now question number 6. Which of these is a correct identity? Bold symbols denote vectors. So I think it is not very clear from the questions that which one is a bold symbol. At least to me it was not clear. But if you look carefully, you will see that this right hand side only on this term is, I think this is are not bold thing. Other things are, I think, bold. So anyway, so look at the identity. C cross C equal to mod of C squared is not right, because just in the previous question I told you that a cross product of two vectors, if they are similar vectors, this is going to be 0. And what they have given you, this is not a case for cross products, but this is a case for dot products. Cross product with its own vector is going to give you the modulus square. So this is a false statement. Then C cross D equal to minus D cross C. This is also something that I told you just in the last question. This is obviously true, because whenever you change the sequential order of the cross product components, you get the minus sign, additional minus sign. That is how there is a C cross D equal to minus D cross C. This is true. Then B dot A dot C equal to C dot A dot B. Whether this is a correct identity or not. First of all, if you look at it, there are two dot product with three vectors, right? So if you like compartmentalize them, like say if you first take these dot products A and C, and similarly on the right hand side you take the first dot product of A and B and leave the other vector behind, you see that two vector dot product is a scalar quantity, right? Two vector dot product will always give you a scalar. But then how come you have a dot product of a scalar and a vector? Because here the first term is a vector and the second term is a scalar. Similarly here the second term is a scalar and the first term is a vector. So a dot product between a vector and scalar is not acceptable. This is not allowed, or this is wrong. Mathematically this is not correct. So you can only take dot product between two vectors, not between a vector and a scalar. So obviously this is, at a first glance you can tell that this is not correct. Then also x dot y equal to z is also incorrect, because x and y and z are all vectors. Now if you have on the left hand side a dot product of two vectors, this automatically makes it a scalar, whether on the right hand side they are giving you a vector. So again scalar cannot be equal to vector, so this is also incorrect. So only correct statement is this one. This is also vector identity for cross product rule. That is also your correct answer. So correct answer is B here. Okay, so we are almost there to the end of the session. The last two questions are just conceptual questions. Let us finish them and then we'll keep some time whether you have any doubt in the previous calculations. If I went too fast in that part, I don't know. So anyway, let us discuss question 7, that which of the following is true about speed and velocity. Now this is a very like fun thing to remember. I don't know, you all must have also remembered it in that way, that speed is starting with s, so this is a scalar quantity, and so that is just a like fun thing to remember it like. But and velocity starting with v is a vector quantity, as at least I used to remember it like that when I first read about scalars and vectors. But the idea is that speed, so scalar is something that only has a value, that does not have any information of direction, but vector is something that has both value and direction. Like say for speed, you say that this car is moving at a speed of this 15 kilometer per hour or something. This train is moving like that. So this is not mentioning you the direction, whether this is moving to north or to south. This is just telling you the velocity, the speed, the value. So that is how speed is a scalar, right? But velocity, when you mention velocity of an object, then you have to mention the value and the direction. Let's say you say that this ball is like being thrown in the direction some x cap plus y cap, some direction, or let's say simple terms, this ball is thrown to the north with the velocity of this kilometer per hour. So then it has a value plus a direction. So mostly in physics or vector calculus as such, we always quote the term velocity, because you will see that there will be expressions of components given in coordinates of x cap, y cap and z cap unit vectors. As soon as you see that, you know that this is the vector and this is a velocity. And speed is nothing but a value. It is not a vector. So here our speed is a scalar and velocity is a vector is the correct answer. Now question number 8 is the last question, is that which of the following is not a scalar quantity? First one is intensity of sound of supporters shouting during a cricket match. So think of it like this, that whenever you are saying that somebody is shouting, so how will you measure it? You will say that how loud they are, or how they are not loud or loud. So the intensity is something that you are measuring by the value, not the direction. You do not say that they are screaming in the direction of north or something. That is completely invalid, right? So this is simple idea that intensity of a sound cannot be a vector. This is a scalar, obviously. So they are asking which one is not a scalar. So now the second thing is that atmospheric pressure before a cyclone. So this is also a scalar quantity. So by the simple idea, we can say that pressure means you say that this pressure is some quantity that you quote. Whatever is the pressure unit, I think you know that pressure unit can be different units like bar. There can be atmospheric pressure units, ATM, simple form. So one atmospheric pressure is 1 atm. with some expression of some bar. I think it was 1.013 bar, if I remember it correctly. Anyway, this is just a value. There is no direction associated with it. So you say that this is a scalar quantity. Now the displacement of a dog chasing a car. Displacement, you see that earlier also in question number 1 and 2 we saw that displacement was a vector, d vector. So whenever a dog is chasing a car, so it has to follow direction as well. It cannot have just a velocity of moving. So it will have a position or displacement and it will have a direction. So displacement is a vector. So this is the vector. So this is scalar, displacement is a vector. And the temperature of your classroom during summertime is also a scalar. So this is not a vector, because temperature will measure that how hot it is or how cold it is. It has also not got any directional information. So the correct answer is that displacement of a dog chasing a car is a only vector quantity out here. So I think we have solved all the questions that were relevant for the assignment. In case if you have any questions or doubts, you can ask me now.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to begin. So if you can go to second question, we solved direction. So my question regarding similar directions is, say if f cap is a x cap, if you can, so is that the solution directly somewhere written there, so we can talk about it? If you can scroll to the solution of second.
You want the solution of second question?
Yeah, just the solution, so it is more clearer for me to get it. Okay, there you go. So f cap, brilliant. So we see that f cap is, I mean, the direction of f. Yeah, just stop, I think.
So you want the question part number 1 or part number 2?
Part number one, just the direction question. There you go. Yeah, just this one is fine. So if we see that f cap is minus 3x minus 2, so this is the thing, and d cap is so and so. So my question is, if say for f cap there is no z, there is no z cap component at all, and if for d cap, say the y cap component is minus 4.
Yeah.
So although the values are different, because the what do you say, the signs are same, will you say that f cap and d cap are in the same direction?
So let me just write down so that I do not get confused.
It is better if you write it down.
F vector is, let's say, minus 3x cap minus 2y cap, and no z cap is there.
That's all.
And then
f cap, please.
F cap. So first of all, you have to say that this is the vector you are talking about, or you have directly given me the unit vector.
Yeah, I'm just giving you directly the direction. Correct. Here also we are talking about direction only.
Direction.
Madam.
So that it is f cap, the unit vector.
Yeah.
Similarly, for d cap, you want me to write that this is minus 3x cap.
X minus 4y. 4y, you're right. So yeah, so my question is, because the minus signs are same, although the values are different, will we say that f cap and d cap are along the same direction?
No, will not say that. First of all, there is a conceptual mistake I'd like to point out, that whenever you are mentioning that this is a unit vector, okay, so you have to normalize always. So it cannot be a unit vector unless you normalize it. It has to have this modulus normalizing 3 square plus 2 square. Okay. So here also you have to have 3 square plus 4 square, right? So otherwise you cannot say this is a unit vector. This is just a vector unless you normalize it by its magnitude. Then your question is whether, because they have both x cap and y cap, whether they are on the same direction. So that is not correct, because you see that unit vectors, the form of the unit vectors are not the same, because that is minus 3x cap minus 2y cap by some term. There is a different magnitude and there is a different magnitude. So whenever you compare both of them, they are not the same.
Okay, thank you, madam. So they have to be exactly having the same values to have the same direction, correct, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep this in mind. And my second question is, so the whole session has been very informative from the beginning till now. If we have questions in the future, is there an email account you can give us so that we can reach out to you?
I think in the NPTEL they have given you some forum information or something on which.
Yeah, there is a Q&A forum, but I thought that was for general questions. So I'm asking you specifically here. But if you're not allowed to give anything, that is fine. We'll wait for the end of the week to ask you questions. That is also fine.
Actually, we are instructed in such a way that you have to post your questions in the forums. both
Oh.
regarding the lectures and also regarding the tutorials, something that you want to ask to the TA for the tutorial. And each questions relevant to the TAs will be answered there, and the questions relevant to the lectures will be answered by some other TAs in the NPTEL group or something. So I think we cannot share the individual email ID. You can ask the question there, and I'll try to answer them, or you can like note down the questions and we can directly discuss in live sessions.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you. The whole session has been very informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if anybody else has any questions left, you can ask right now. If not, then we'll end this session here, and you will be getting the recorded link for this, like recorded thing will be uploaded in the YouTube channel link, so which will be, you will get access to from your NPTEL course account. And this OneNote file in which I have solved, so this is basically a rough thing I have kind of done, but if you want to follow later on for your checks, you can get the access of this document from there as well. And I'll suggest you that, because I see that these assignments they are giving you in each week, and what I am solving in the tutorials are mostly, I think, exact same assignments. Sometimes there are similar questions and mix of similar questions and some other questions, but like this assignment, I saw that this is exactly same as the assignment that you have been given to solve, and you have to submit, I think, also before the deadline. So I would prefer that before joining the tutorial, if you try for yourself from the lecture knowledge that you have, you try for yourself so that you also have a first-hand understanding of the problems. And then when you discuss in the live tutorial sessions, we can one-to-one discuss that. Whether you can check your solutions that you have done, whether they match with me. Then if I make any mistake at any point of time, you can also correct me that, okay, this will be this, and then we can discuss. That way it will be more informative and more fun to learn. And then you can keep the questions or doubts that you cannot solve for yourself, then we can discuss also in this tutorial. Okay, so I think there are no further questions from here. So we'll end the session now. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.